All right, welcome to Hannity. Busy News Night, Busy News Week. You're going to want to see tonight our exclusive investigative report on what is being called by Peter Schweizer the Biden Five. Apparently, the zero experience stuff with Hunter is just the tip of the iceberg. So wait until you hear this exclusive report. Also tonight, the Democrats, they're heinous, they're unconstitutional, and outright, frankly, dangerous impeachment fantasy is getting ripped to shreds. Now, President Trump's legal team calling it, quote, rightly so, dangerous perversion of the Constitution, a brazen and unlawful attempt to overturn the results of the 2016 election and to interfere with the 2020 election, now just months away. 288 days, but who's counting? They are bastardizing the Constitution. No Republican senator, listen, voters out there, you elect these people, should give this one iota of legitimacy. For those Republicans, the people you've elected, who want to prove their own moral superiority and sense of extra special fairness, you need to focus on your constitutional role, period, which is why the voters hired you. According to Article 1, Section 2, the House of Representatives have the sole power of impeachment. They've impeached the president. The Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. You are doing the trial part. Now, you, the American people, you need to know this. It is not your Republican senator's job to bolster what are pathetically weak articles of impeachment from the House. It is not your senator's duty to call witnesses that the House didn't even subpoena. It is not your representative's responsibility to investigate evidence the House neglected to examine. There are no do-overs. The Senate doesn't get to take on the constitutional role of the House. Senators review the articles of impeachment. That's it, as delivered by the House. They now have House managers. They will present their case, and your Republican senators need to render a verdict. That's it. Now, listen closely, because these articles are an affront to our entire constitutional system. The ramifications would transcend and alter the presidency, the executive branch of our government. Tomorrow morning, you have the most radical Trump-hating members of the House of Representatives will present these pathetic, weak arguments to the U.S. Senate. Their case consists of two insidious articles. The first accusing the president of an impeachable offense, a crime that doesn't exist, a vague, general, catch-all charge they call abuse of power. The president's legal team rightly is calling this nebulous concept constitutionally defective. That's the tip of the iceberg. They wrote, quote, it supplants the framers' standard of bribery, high crimes, misdemeanors, what is with a made-up theory, unconstitutional, that the president can be impeached and removed from office under these various and undefined standard of, well, some abuse of power. What is that? There's no crime. And while the sheer basis is unconstitutional, so is the accusation. Democrats, they want America to believe two things. One, based on rumors, speculation, hearsay, opinion witnesses, hearsay witnesses, contradictory testimony. They claim the president coerced the country of Ukraine into investigating quid pro quo Joe and investigating Ukraine's election interference. Now, keep in mind, the country never agreed to open any investigation. They never agreed. They didn't even know the money was being held back a little bit. The U.S. aid was paid out in full ahead of schedule. And guess what? There were 5 separate high-level meetings after the call. Not one time was aid ever brought up, even with the vice president being there. The president never mentioned aid in the call. The only thing the president mentioned in the call was, hey, I'm getting worried. You're surrounding yourself with some of the same corrupt people as your predecessor. Not a good idea. The president, in his mind, obviously was worried about corruption. Rightly so, and giving money to a country that has been corrupt. Ukrainian government denied any coercion from the get-go. Zelensky has said it numerous times. The foreign minister has said it numerous times. Now, the second thing Democrats, they want the country to believe is that somehow it's illegal for a president of the United States to investigate a potential crime committed by Joe Biden and his son Hunter. Now, apparently Democrats think quid pro quo Joe is totally immune from any past illicit behavior, and that his zero-experience son, Hunter, making millions from a corrupt Ukrainian energy company while his father oversees U.S.-Ukraine policy. What, we, the American people, can any of you out watching the show tonight, or any of your friends, or anybody who you know, you think you're going to get paid millions of dollars from any company if you have zero experience? I don't think so. And we're just supposed to accept that's okay? You're not getting the billion? Really? Quid pro quo Joe literally leveraged $1 billion of your dollars, U.S. aid, to get a Ukrainian prosecutor who was investigating his son and his son's company, all this money, bragging about it on TV, giving them 6 hours or you're not getting the billion. We're supposed to pretend that never happened? Now, of course, we all know that the President of the United States also has a sworn constitutional duty to faithfully execute the laws of the land. And by the way, in his call with the Ukrainian president, well, he first asked for cooperation with a very legitimate concern. Do us, not me, do us, your country and my country, a favor. Ukrainian collusion in the 2016 election. By the way, as documented in a January 11th, 2017 Politico investigative report. Foreign election interference is, after all, and has been for 3 years, a concern. By the way, this is separate and apart. We all agree Russia interfered. By the way, if we had listened to Devin Nunes in 2014, maybe Biden and Obama would have done something to stop it. This is separate and apart. Yes, the Russians interfered, but according to a Ukraine court and according to Politico, so did the Ukrainians. Later in the call, the president raised legitimate concerns about the Biden sketchy behavior, at that point on tape, in the country of Ukraine. Joe was serving as vice president in charge of Ukrainian policy. According to Democrats, that's now an impeachable offense. What? That's the president's job. And it gets worse. The second article of impeachment is a blatant attempt to destroy what is a critically important, consequential function of the executive branch of government. Commander-in-Chief, House Democrats are accusing the president of obstruction of Congress for simply asserting, or saying he will assert, ultimately didn't have to assert because they never subpoenaed the people, executive privilege. And by the way, when there is a conflict between the executive and legislative branch, it is a normal process to go to the third branch. That would be the, of course, judicial branch of government to seek remedy. Now, this tool enables the president to withhold sensitive information that impacts our national security and foreign affairs. The president's legal team rightly describing it as, quote, essential to protect the president's ability to secure candid, confidential advice and have frank discussions with his advisors. This has been utilized by every single president, starting with that guy, George Washington. President Bush asserted executive privilege 6 times. President Obama asserted this power once. Neither was subject of an impeachment charade. It wasn't considered obstruction when they did it. In 1998, even Congressman Jerry Nadler, the biggest hypocrite, along with Schiff in Congress, argued that the use of executive privilege is, quote, not illegal or impeachable. That's only for his side. And here's the kicker. In a dispute over the legitimacy of an executive privilege claim, the courts issue the verdict. They provide the remedy. In the case of President Trump, Democrats didn't bother to fight the case in court. I'll tell you why. They thought they were going to lose, all but ignoring our third branch of government. Constitutional scholar Jonathan Turley testifying this represented an abuse of power committed by House Democrats. And according to the president's legal brief, quote, they simply announced that constitutional accommodation, contempt, and litigation were all too inconvenient for their politically driven timetable and that they must impeach the president immediately, urgently. Tonight, the Senate must not, your elected senators must not capitulate, lend legitimacy to the demands of a compromised, in this specific case, congenital liar. He's been lying to us for 3 years, Adam Schiff, and the rest of his malignant House managers. That's because this is a baseless impeachment. It has been politically motivated with a hunt from the very beginning. Now, there was no fairness, there was no due process, there was no fair investigation. All the considerations Newt Gingrich and the Republicans gave Bill Clinton and his attorneys, none of which were given to President Trump. And most importantly, no legitimate impeachable offenses and no crime. Now it's time for the U.S. Senate to fulfill your constitutional duty. Your senators need to hear from you. Now, you hear the Democrats' pathetic case. They should now. House has the sole power constitutionally to impeach. The Senate has the sole power to hold the trial. Okay, they impeached him. Bring your case, make your case, and then the Senate render a verdict. Dismiss it, because there's no impeachable offense here.